Hi everyone, it's your boy Zach, and I'm back. Oh, that's a terrible catchphrase. But anyway, this is the review for Star Trek Discovery, Season 2, Episode 2, called New Eden. So I just jumped in back to using this channel, and it's going to be mostly, or actually pretty much exclusively, TV and movies and maybe video games. But anyway, I did a review of Season 2, Episode 1. It was mostly positive as far as a show, and then just very confused why it's called Star Trek, because it's not Star Trek. It's just some other show. So I watched Season 2, Episode 2, New Eden, and this one pretty much was Star Trek, except for when it really wasn't. So that's why the title is Star Trek Discovery is messing with my head. To get right into this one, I saw it late at night. I actually watched I forget the name of the short trek, the big something. I don't know. I'll look it up, and then obviously you saw it in the video title. But I finished Brother, and I like that one a lot. So then I watched my first short trek. Short trek there's a whole like corporate shenanigan explanation about what short treks are. Basically, they're extras. If this was a DVD, they would be an extra. It's these 15-minute, very simple, very low budget character pieces. And this one was on Saru, who is the acting captain of Discovery. And it was pretty good. I mean, I saw Red Letter Media describe, I think, 3 out of the 4 short treks, and it was pretty much exactly what it was like. I don't know. It was a very, very simple story. It was basically an anti-religion, pro-science story. Very, very simple, and yet somehow engaging for 15 minutes of just basically watching two people. There's like 2 speaking roles, 2 or 3. But there's really not much to say. Saru is from, he's a race of Kelpians. Yeah. That's like one of those jokey, like George Lucas alien species names. He's a Kelpian. Ugh. And they worship this floating obelisk that sometimes sacrifices people, but really just transports them. And then he asks why. And then a piece falls off. There's this hilarious line where he says, "A piece falls off, as sometimes happens." And then the father, who's a priest, says, "Go take it and hide it." I would think it would be to either push it back onto the obelisk or turn it into its own mini monument, but whatever. So Saru starts messing with it, and apparently it's a communications equipment, and he starts communicating with not the aliens who created the obelisk, but Starfleet for some reason. And then Starfleet comes and recruits him because of a reason. I don't know. It's one of those things that while watching it, it works just fine, and then as soon as it finishes, you go, "What? That made no sense." So he's got this. He communicates with Starfleet, and they're like, "We're so impressed with you. We're gonna recruit you, but you can't go back to your homeworld." And it's Captain Giorgio, who seems to be speaking phonetically, which is just really distracting to me. But wow, this sounds like I'm running it down. But as far as the short trek, I was entertained. And then I watched Episode 2, and Episode 2 was pretty good from what other more real Star Trek fans said. It was more of a real Star Trek episode. So the plot of this season is there's 7 signals, and they're going to go check them out. And it seems to be this thing called the Red Angel. So this one, it looks like Captain Pike is about to get written out of the series in Episode 2, which I actually kind of fell for, because I've seen that happen in other series. In Supergirl, in I think Season 2, they brought in Superman, and you're like, oh cool, and like the first 3 episodes had Superman in it, and they were pretty good, and then they just wrote him out for the rest of the season until the end. So I go, oh, really, dude? I thought this Captain Pike was pretty cool. I mean, technically he's the captain of the Enterprise, but the Enterprise is being fixed. They put him, he kind of says goodbye, and then he comes back. He's like, oh yeah, Starfleet put me back to check out these other ones. So they go to find this source, but it's way the hell out. And nobody should be able to be sending a signal, and it's a signal that is, it sounds like it's Earthlings. So it was interesting. I felt like I've heard that most of these are kind of espionage and action schlock, whereas this one seemed like a very, very Star Trek style plot. So it would take them 120 years to go to get there by warp, but they have this thing called the Spore Drive, which I still don't really understand, but it allows you to teleport. So they teleport there, and then they peek in on the world, and they just see an old like an old school or church house, and there was actually a cool bit where Michael Burnham, the main character, she just calls it a structure because she doesn't realize that it's a church, because she grew up on Vulcan, and I thought that was a nice little bit. And then Captain Pike's like, it's a church. So they go down there and they find a pre-warp civilization of people that existed around World War III, who got teleported way across the universe right before a nuclear war eliminated 600 million people. And this is where the show got good and bad at the same time. So it's basically an away team mission, but they send the captain for no reason, even though he's the captain. And one of the things I like about STNG is, at least in the earlier episodes, Picard would stay on the ship and he would send Riker down because the captain's place is on the ship. Like when Navy SEALs deploy from an aircraft carrier, the captain of the aircraft carrier doesn't go with them. He stays he's the captain of the aircraft carrier. But he just goes down, and then they take Michael, which makes sense. She's kind of, she's like the King Dingling of the show. She's cool and she could do everything. But then they take this random bridge officer who I don't really remember what she is. I think she might be the navigator. So they take her. But in the previous episode, they took this security cyborg woman who looked cool but didn't do much. And I was just like, why is she here? And then she didn't do much, and she had no real personality. Usually, when you bring someone down to a planet, it's for them to either die or excel in some way. Now, at one point, they get, and I know this is going to sound stupid, they get locked in a cellar with a very simple slide lock. Now, she gets them out, and then the thing that annoyed the hell out of me is that she uses a magnet to open a lock, and then she turns around beaming with pride, obviously waiting to be congratulated. These people can teleport across the universe. This isn't grade school. Nobody's going to be impressed with your Mr. Wizard style using a magnet to move metal trick. But then we get in the basic prime directive thing, which for some reason they keep calling General Order Number 1, which is fine. It's like a more military way of saying it. But I just was a little curious why they were doing that. Now, I just watched Mecha Random 42. She did a video, it's like 20 things wrong with Star Trek Discovery. And she apparently is really, really against the series. And one of the things is that it just doesn't marry up with the original series, from the 60s, and then the Kelvin storyline. And I just feel like it's almost unspoken that this is a third storyline. Now, I know they say it marries up with the other storylines, but it does and it doesn't, so that's fine. The Chris Pine Kirk was significantly different than the William Shatner Kirk. It's fine, and I'm looking forward to Kirk popping up in season 3 or 4 of Discovery. But everything's different because it's different. I don't really have a problem with the technology is too advanced and they got the spore drive. I do have a problem with the Klingons looking different. I had that problem in the Kelvin timeline too. The Klingons look that evolved from the original series to what happened in the movies and then was solidified in STNG and Deep Space Nine. Like, that's a classic of the sci-fi genre. There's no need to change it ever. You can make Star Trek movies for 100 years and you never have to change it. It's pretty much a perfect alien design, alien humanoid design. So, yeah. Okay, so it gets back to the classic Prime Directive thing of you can't interfere with the society, but by an amazing coincidence, or maybe not, so the last time they got sent a signal, it was right before a ship was about to fall into a something that was bad, and this planet, which is very idyllic and is a new Eden, is also going to have something bad happen in like 6 hours after they got there. So they seem to be getting signals where they're led to areas where they can help out, which is cool. So now they have to do the whole Prime Directive song and dance. The Prime Directive is that you're not supposed to interfere with the natural progression or end of a species that does not have warp capabilities. Basically, if you don't have the ability to voyage to all the stars, Starfleet, you're not in their purview. They're just gonna let you rise or fall or on your own, or just stagnate and just be stuck at, whatever level Stone Age you stay at forever. So they have a thing where it looks like Michael is about to basically buck the system and break the rules, but Captain Pike is a pretty, strong but fair ruler, and he says, this is the general order number 1. I'm the captain. You're going to support me. And Michael basically says, okay. So they end up getting some information, and then they have to go back up. And, she's like, hey, they're going to be doomed without us. And he's like, but I actually forget how exactly she says it. But she convinces him that this is one of those things where the Prime Directive should be put to the side briefly. So I forget exactly how she does it, but it was actually fairly convincing. It was still a judgment call on Captain Pike's decision, but it didn't make him look weak or wishy-washy. It was a good argument presented well, but not presented well enough for me to remember it the next day. So then anyway, he goes back and he has a nice talk with this guy who is basically kind of like a lighthouse keeper. His family for like 200 years had manned this radio relay, whatever, Ansible type of thing. And he basically says, okay, so Earth didn't get destroyed. Yes, we're not going back, but my family wasn't crazy. And then he kind of willingly turns it off, and he has a closure, which I thought was really nice. And, Pike shows up in his Starfleet uniform instead of civvies like you see in the image for this video. And he's like, yep, we evolved, we advanced, we weren't destroyed. I can't take you because of reason X, Y, and Z. By the way, a short little thing. I really like the production design of this, and I like pretty much everything. In both the short trek, there was this communication relay. In this one, there's a different communication relay, which kind of looks similar. But at one point, the guy, his family has been doing this relay for decades. He's basically closing it up and shutting it down. And I don't know, it seems like a dumb little thing, but it looked like an actual piece of tech. Like the form factor didn't really match other forms of Star Trek, although it was supposed to be a couple hundred years old. But it looked cool and it looked real and it looked like it worked. I don't know, that might not make any sense. So I really appreciate that. Then there was a really cool bit with there was some surprises. That's what stories are made of, surprises. So they have Tilly, who someone described as basically, Tilly is a character so fake geek girls can watch the show and say, OMG, she is like so me. So she's really into the science, but she actually in classic kind of like Geordie fashion, she's a lot more like Jeff Goldwyn type of character. Like, she kind of gets hyper and she babbles, but she's clearly intelligent and she has a lot of personality. So I thought I was going to hate this character, but I kind of like her because she's interesting. So she works out a way to save this civilization using this super dense rock that they found in the previous issue, which I like, since these are, obviously this is going to build to something. And then they do a really cool maneuver that kind of draws away this debris field. But one thing that happened that was really cool and weird, that's why I say it was messing with my head, is one of the tropes of SJW comics, movies, TV is that women are all friends and women are constantly emotionally validating each other and themselves. So at one point, this kind of creepy, I don't know, she works in sick bay and she kind of talks in baby talk, is constantly emotionally validating Tilly, who is injured while doing an experiment. And it's really kind of over the top, but it isn't, because in movies and TVs and comics these days, you're used to this really condescending thing where female characters are constantly emotionally validated in almost as if they're children. And the characters are never offended by this. It's like, oh, you dressed yourself and you went potty like a big girl. And they're like, I'm crushing it today. So she's talking, she's like, you're so good. Your mind is beautiful. And at first I thought maybe she was hitting on her, but then it really was over the top that, like, this might be some kind of apparition, or it might be the Red Angel appearing. The problem is that Tilly never had like a little cocked eyebrow, like, I know I'm young, but I'm still an adult, and this person is talking to me like I'm a child. Yeah, pretty much everyone likes compliments, but it's really over the top. Like, she just absorbed all of these compliments. Now, later she noticed something was wrong, but it was one of those things where, like, I think I've explained it. Female characters get constantly emotionally validated and they accept it and they're not insulted by this condescending way of speaking to them. But it actually was over the top, and it was apparently to pump her up, and she didn't notice, which is kind of weird. Okay, I think I covered it pretty much all. So overall, I really liked the episode. And one thing I complained about in the last video that I am now really, really liking is that the episodes are released one at a time. Why do I like that? Because I'm not a binger, which means every time, Netflix, it releases the entire series at once, so you can binge it in one day. I swear, these Netflix Marvel series come out at like 11 in the morning. I'm getting DMs from buddies. Hey, are you watching The Punisher Season 2? I go, I just woke up. They're like, I'm already on episode 7. It's pretty good, but X, Y, and Z is wrong with it. I'm like, what? They put it live at midnight. There's only been 11 hours to watch, and you're already on episode 7? So one of the things is, it's never fun for me because a lot of people are bingers. So when I'm on episode 1, they're already done with it. They might want to talk about it for a day, but like, once Punisher Season 2 has been out for 3 days, it's like it's old news. It's like you're talking about Jessica Jones Season 1. Whereas this one, you can get a little behind and you can catch up, so you can say, oh, I wonder what's happening with the Red Angel. I wonder what's happening with Captain Pike. Is he going to get paralyzed like he was in the original series? What's going to happen with Spock? What was the relationship with Spock and Burnham? And it's like, oh, I'm interested. This is almost kind of like a best of both worlds type of thing. So anyway, tell me what you think. It's kind of ridiculous to have a 20-minute review of a 40-minute episode, but I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. I'm really looking forward to the next episode, which comes out in like 5 days. So thanks for watching, and I'll have pretty much one episode or one new video on this channel every day. Thanks. Bye.